Here are my worst punishments, no ranking, and let's get started. Number 1, impalement. Impalement is an ancient method of torture and execution, dating back to civilizations like Assyria and Persia. The method was used in wartime to suppress rebellions, punish traitors, and violations of military discipline. A long, sharp stake, often lubricated, was driven through the victim's body either vertically or horizontally. In the vertical method, the stake was inserted through the rectum or vagina and carefully maneuvered through the body to avoid major organs, prolonging agony until it protruded from the mouth, neck, or shoulders. The stake was then planted in the ground, leaving the victim suspended, dying gradually from internal injuries, shock, dehydration, or blood loss. In some instances, the stake was blunt rather than sharp, meaning that the body would not be impaled quickly, but instead would be slowly crushed. Gravity played a significant role in this form of torture, as the victim's body weight pulled them down onto the stake, worsening their wounds over time. Just imagining this process brings a visceral sense of dread and discomfort. Vlad the Impaler, also known as Vlad Dracula, is the most notorious figure associated with impalement. During his reign, he used impalement as a punishment for enemies, with reports suggesting that he impaled entire armies. One of the most shocking accounts is the impalement of 20,000 Ottoman soldiers near the city of Târgoviște, which earned him infamy throughout Europe. Number 2, flaying. Flaying, or skinning alive, it is believed to have originated in the Assyrian Empire, where it was used to punish enemies and criminals. Historical texts and depictions show that it was carried out as a form of terror, particularly against those who rebelled against Assyrian rule. Normally, victims would be flayed partially or completely while still alive, exposing the living tissue underneath. These gruesome acts were often followed by displaying the victim's skin on city walls as a stark warning to others. This horrifying method of punishment was also utilized in other cultures, including ancient Greece and Persia. One of the most infamous historical figures associated with flaying was Shah Ismail I, the founder of the Safavid dynasty in Persia. It is said that he ordered the flaying of his enemies as punishment for defying him. The terror of flaying lay in the excruciating and prolonged pain it inflicted. The skin would typically be removed starting from the extremities, such as the face or limbs, while the victim remained conscious. Every movement would further aggravate the exposed tissues, leading to a slow and agonizing death, often lasting for hours. Victims could also die from shock or infection if they survived the initial flaying. In medieval Europe, flaying was employed as punishment for treason, with the victim's skin displayed as a public reminder of the consequences of betrayal. Number 3, Lingchi. Lingchi, also known as death by 1,000 cuts, was a horrifying method of execution in Imperial China, used from the 10th century until it was banned in 1905. This slow and painful form of torture was designed not only to kill, but also to humiliate and destroy the victim's body, making it one of the most dreaded forms of capital punishment. Lingchi was reserved for severe crimes, such as treason, murdering family members, or other heinous acts. During this era, dismemberment after death was seen as a profound disgrace, as it was believed the body needed to remain whole in the afterlife. The punishment involved cutting away pieces of flesh from the victim's body, starting with non-lethal cuts to the limbs. The executioner was often highly skilled, prolonging the victim's life to inflict maximum suffering. The number of cuts varied, but it typically exceeded 100 before the victim finally succumbed to death. This slow and deliberate dismemberment made Lingchi an extraordinarily painful and drawn-out way to die. One of the most infamous cases was that of Fang Xiaoru, a Confucian scholar loyal to the deposed Emperor Jianwen during the Ming Dynasty. After refusing to submit to the new Emperor Yongle, Fang Xiaoru was sentenced to Lingchi. It is said that he endured the torture without screaming, a testament to his strong will. His execution served as a dire warning to others who might challenge the emperor's rule. Today, Lingchi is remembered for its sheer brutality, symbolizing the absolute power of the ruling class over individuals. Victims knew that they would suffer one of the most shameful and agonizing deaths. Their bodies literally torn apart piece by piece in full view of the public. Number 4. Blood Eagle. Blood Eagle is an infamous and brutal execution method from Viking legend. Its origins lie in early medieval Scandinavian sagas, where it was portrayed as both a gruesome form of torture and a symbolic ritual designed to instill fear and demonstrate power. In this torture, the executioner would cut the victim's back along the spine, sever the ribs near the spine, and pull them outward to resemble wings. The lungs would then be pulled through the opening to complete. Salt may have been rubbed into the wounds to amplify the suffering. The victim, often still alive during the initial stages, would endure excruciating pain as the torture was carried out. Once completed, the victim would be displayed as a warning to others. While there is significant doubt among historians about whether the blood eagle was ever used in reality or if it was exaggerated in legend, its terrifying reputation alone was enough to strike fear into the hearts of many. Historical accounts of blood eagle executions often revolve around vengeance for the murder of a family member or noble figure. One of the most famous examples is the execution of Aella of Northumbria. After Ella killed the legendary Viking hero Ragnar Lothbrok, Ragnar's sons sought revenge. They are said to have captured Ella and performed the blood eagle as a ritualistic punishment. Whether or not the blood eagle was ever truly practiced, it remains a chilling symbol of Viking brutality and a feature part of their cultural lore. Number 5. Brazen Bull. The Brazen Bull, also known as the Sicilian Bull, was invented by the ancient Greek tyrant Phalaris of Agrigentum in Sicily around 570 BC. According to legend, the bull was designed by a bronze worker named Perillus of Athens. Phalaris requested Perillus to craft a hollow bull with a door on one side to place victims inside. The brazen bull was made entirely of bronze and was large enough to hold a person inside. Once the victim was locked inside, a fire would be lit beneath the bull. As the metal heated up, the person inside would slowly be roasted alive. The death was excruciatingly slow, with the victim feeling every burn as their skin and flesh charred. Moreover, the bull was ingeniously and cruelly designed with a sound system that transformed the victim's screams into what resembled the bellowing of an enraged bull, masking the true horror of the screams. Phalaris, notorious for his brutality, enjoyed using this device as a form of entertainment. One of the most famous stories associated with the brazen bull involves its creator, Perillus. When Perillus presented the bull to Phalaris, the tyrant commanded him to demonstrate its effectiveness by climbing inside. After Perillus did so, Phalaris locked him in and lit a fire beneath the bull, making Perillus suffer from the very invention he had built. He was pulled out before death and thrown off a cliff. Ironically, after using the brazen bull to torture prisoners and criminals for entertainment, Phalaris himself met the same fate. Historical records suggest that when the people of Agrigentum eventually rebelled against him, they overthrew Phalaris and executed him using the very brazen bull he had used to torment others. Number 6. Scaphism. Scaphism, also known as the boats, was a torturous execution method that originated in ancient Persia. The term Scaphism comes from the Greek word for boat, which directly references the method's execution process. In Scaphism, the victim was stripped naked and tightly bound inside a hollowed-out log or between two small boats, with their head, hands, and feet exposed. They were force-fed a mixture of milk and honey, causing severe diarrhea. Simultaneously, honey was smeared on their exposed body parts to attract insects. The victim was then left to float on a river or lake, initially seeming peaceful, but horror soon followed. Under the scorching sun, insects would be drawn to the honey, covering the victim's body. The combination of intense bloating, diarrhea, and flesh-eating insects turned the experience into a nightmare. Over several days or even weeks, the victim would suffer from infections, dehydration, and sepsis as insects burrowed deeper into their skin, creating open sores and holes in their body. The most famous account of Scaphism involves the execution of Mithridates, who was sentenced to this brutal torture by King Artaxerxes II for killing the king's brother, Cyrus the Younger. According to the Greek historian Plutarch, Mithridates endured the agony of Scaphism for 17 days before finally succumbing to the torture. This method remains one of the most horrifying and slowest forms of execution ever documented, showcasing the extreme cruelty of ancient punishment methods. And that's all I have for this video. Thanks, and see you next time.